Okay, so also for the record, this is our weekly IOTA Community Governance meeting about the Treasury DAO that is in planning and is to set up with basically the 55 Ti IOTA tokens and potentially Shimmer Treasury DAO. And agenda today, because we want to keep it a bit shorter, because later on we're going to have the session with the Bankless DAO guys presenting Aave grants. We had last week a meeting with Dr. Bian Minat, which is a crypto lawyer, quite experienced in a couple of years, that would be able to represent the IOTA community in their attempts of setting up a legal entity for the Treasury DAO. And he kind of explained pretty good and what options would be out there. And I think we learned quite a lot of this session, and maybe we just go through some of the findings again, and then talk about how we can move forward now with this information and what would be basically the next steps to get things moving in regards of the Treasury DAO. Also, maybe we can have a short look into Aave so that we have some basic info already on hand for us for the session later when Bankless is going into more details about Aave and their grants program. Okay. The one thing that was pretty good, I think, what Bian last week explained were a bit of the advantages and disadvantages of the I mean, there are many legal wrapper options out there, and they all serve different purposes, and some are pretty good for some purposes and others not. I think we learned quite some things from that. So maybe some of the quite common used ones, the Cayman Island Foundation. I think it was interesting in his opinion because even that a lot of crypto projects use it, it's still kind of this seen as an offshore tax haven where kind of a little bit not 100% trustful things might happen, yeah, like with all these offshore things. And also, it seems to be quite expensive to set this whole thing up in Cayman Islands. I mean, they have good regulations in regards to crypto and DAO, and so basically, technically, they would be a good option, but setting it up is quite expensive, and you kind of always need a local representative there, or a director, or a lawyer that is kind of in charge of some parts of the operation of the DAO, which may be, yeah, not always super nice because it's basically it's a centralization point, and it's kind of you can say, okay, that's kind of a neutral person that is not part of the DAO, but basically also not maybe aligned with the goals of a community or something. Basically, they're just getting paid to represent there and sit in an office and forward some documents or things like this to fulfill the rules. But it might be something that really, if we would want to go into such a direction, we have to really think about if this is really a setup that suits for everything. And yeah, I think that was good to learn about this, but still, I think we need to explore a bit deeper here. And as always, if you have any questions or mentions, please just kind of speak. Another common used thing is British Virgin Islands. Basically, I know that British Virgin Islands is very often used for entities that want to issue a token because they seem to have quite a good setup for this token issuing thing regarding securities. But it's more of a corporate structure in British Virgin Islands than um, being a really DAO-like structure there. Um, The good things, I think, is it's not as expensive as Cayman Islands, and also not really complex to set up. Can be done quite quickly, and basically can be a good option, but maybe not perfectly suited for a Treasury DAO. More for something like a DeFi project, where you have really the advantage of you're able to really issue a token, make a lot of profit and stuff like this, and still pay not so high taxes and all those stuff. Yeah. Okay. Then Marshall Islands. Maybe you know, and I think Linus is also here, so we have a bit experience with the Marshall Islands already because the content creators are using this already, and also the IOTA Foundation. We have been in contact with the people in from Marshall Island DAO quite over a long time. But I think also it was interesting to see the opinion of Bian that is still this is a kind of another one of these offshore tax paradise things that and also the thing that there's still kind of an US influence might be something to keep in mind. Um, from the technical thing, the setup is really good. Yeah, so it's I think basically the most crypto native thing that you can do because you can do everything completely on chain. You don't need anybody um, as a director or stuff like this. So that's kind of really interesting. And yeah, but there might be some things in related to the costs, because it can cost up to 30,000 K a year for having this thing. If the DAO would make a lot of income or profit, that's kind of not really clear. We have to clarify this. It can get expensive up to $30,000 a year for running this whole thing in Marshall Islands. But the setup itself is basically not really expensive. That's pretty good. But yeah, I think it's still one of the options that we should consider if we are okay of being seen as sitting somewhere in the equator on a little island that has nothing else than big companies to have a good balance sheet in regards to their taxes. Yeah. Um, yeah. Nobody says anything. um, Switzerland. I think for me the really outcome of this whole thing last week with Bian was that I'm kind of much more happy with the Switzerland solutions that I have been before a bit. Maybe also because we had this experience with there's another Swiss setup which is the Swiss Foundation, which the EDF started to do in the beginning, but then they moved over to this association thing. And I think the Swiss Foundation is really pretty complex and also super expensive to set up. But I think Bian made it quite clear that a Swiss association, like a Swiss Verein would be called, can be a really interesting setup, especially for the purpose that this Treasury DAO would have. Yeah, kind of it's basically a pretty easy setup for a treasury because there's no token issuing, there is no DeFi protocol or stuff happening around it. There can still be a DAO can still make profit as long as it's not distributed as uh, as shares to uh, guys, can you mute yourself, please? Whoever is in here. Yeah. Yeah, so the Swiss association is pretty nice. Like it's People can be members of this association, and they are then part of a DAO. Membership can be represented as an address on chain, on Tangle, or in a smart contract. Yeah, so you basically can keep track of who is a member of the thing just by who is holding a token or an NFT or something like that. Um, it offers everything that you need, kind of. You can have a local bank account and stuff like this. You don't need a lot of complex setups, and you don't even need a Swiss national to be part of that. Um, and basically, it can mostly offer everything that a Treasury DAO would need. One thing that is a bit, we have to clarify this again, that is, it is not offering the same liability protection for the members, for the persons that are part of it, as it would be in others. So it needs to be, members of this association will need to get the full liability um, protection from another entity. Um, and as I have understood it, but I think we can also ask the guys of Bankless later, because Aave has done this. I think they have done it in Switzerland in this way, that they have set up their committee as a GmbH, as a kind of a Swiss company, and also this GmbH is represented on chain, which is possible in Switzerland. So it's represented in shares through tokens and stuff like that. And this GmbH is legally set up under the umbrella of an association. And so this combines the thing, and so the GmbH provides the full legal protection and liability shield for the people that actively are doing anything in the treasury, and the association above it is kind of gives other legal setup and makes it possible to be charitable or even non-profit and things like this. So I don't know what others think that have been part of the call, but for me, this did sound like a really good suitable option, especially because it's also not expensive to do the Swiss association and not time consuming. I think he said something like 15 to $20,000 and can be done in 4 to 8 weeks, which sounds pretty good actually. So maybe if somebody has followed the call and has some own opinions on that. Hello. Linus or anybody. Any opinions on the Swiss setup that Bian was talking last week? Okay, so why? Um, let's think about what would be a way to basically um, move forward with this whole treasury thing. The question basically is, first of all, does the community want to engage with a lawyer to research and provide a real recommendation on a setup that would fit for the Treasury DAO? And who should this lawyer be? We have some people in the community that also have experience, or we have, I think, 2 lawyers in the community. The question would be, should we approach them, or should we put up an open call for I don't know, for a certain amount of time for any lawyers that are part of the community that would want to take on this job for the community and basically take care about exploring things, providing legal documents, and then in the end, if the community decides to move into a specific direction with the legal entity, take care about all the setup and making it possible. Björn would be happy to do this. He has also offered a quite good price, I think, in regards to lawyer fees in crypto. And so my question is really, what should we do? Because we have to plan in advance, and basically this whole DAO shouldn't be hindered, or this treasury shouldn't be hindered to operate just because there is no legal setup and there is no legal protection for people available. Yeah, and if we postpone all those things further and further and further, this basically means that the treasury will operate later and later and later, which is kind of in no one's interest, I think. Opinions?
I just want to tell you that I'm here with you. No worries. I'm here with you and I'm listening, and it's really, really interesting. Of course, I mean, for people jumping in like me right now, which is not really following, I um, I see how DAOs are getting now more complex than some people might have thought. So I think it's good to remind that a DAO is actually a company, like every other companies out there, just with a different structure. So it's not like you're making things easier. You're distributing, let's say, the chain of command or the ownership of the DAO, which actually is a really great thing because it removes, let's say, the power from a C level, from CEOs, CFOs, and whatever, and can be, let's say, dynamically be distributed between the members. And so if I am CFO for 1 year and then I say, hey guys, I've got other business to attend to or anything else, someone else can jump in without many bureaucratic issues
Mhm.
and by following the DAO's rules, which might be reputation instead of just the next CFO is the best friend of the CEO, for example. And this is, I think, this kind of fluidity and this kind of reputation-based ownership of an endeavor like a company, which is a DAO,
Mhm.
is for me really fascinating. But this is
Yeah,
my point of view, of course, in all
yeah,
of this.
yeah, cool.
And I understand, yeah, there are different, let's say, based on the countries, there are different setups that can be leveraged. That should be leveraged because there are risks. I mean, like every other company, there are risks,
Mhm.
and so you should really take the time, like when you purchase a car or when you purchase a house, you have really to take the time and evaluate the different options to make it as safe as possible, but on the other hand, also as dynamic as possible, depending on, of course, your needs. So,
Yeah.
if you say correctly, if it's a non-profit, maybe MIDAO is the best. If you're going to go for profits, there are other options.
Mhm.
And I thank you for giving us all these options.
Yeah. I think there's some good points because also before I was always kind of really over pretty much convinced from I don't have much knowledge in the thing that non-profit might be a better way for a treasury in general, but Bian kind of was pretty confident and said that it's basically not a really more complex or also more risky thing to go not the non-profit route, to be kind of for profit, because it would open up some options for the community for later on to explore, because it might be interesting to have a more sustainable treasury for the long term, um, than just really having tokens and you just give out, give out, give out, give out, give out until the pot is empty, which basically means a non-profit thing. Yeah, so you could get donations and things like this, but you cannot really, as a non-profit, you cannot really engage in activities that kind of would refill or make the treasury even grow or something like this, or even kind of diversifying the treasury into a certain amount of other assets like stable coins and things like this. Yeah, as soon as you start selling tokens to, let's say we go back in a bull market and the treasury is again 150, $200 million, it might be not a bad decision to put a certain percentage into a stable coin instead of a very volatile asset as IOTA tokens would be. But this can be complex if the thing is set up as a non-profit, but pretty simple if it's a for-profit thing. Yeah, and so I think this was really good insights from Björn last time, to see that we are not absolute need to focus on being non-profit. Um, that was pretty interesting. And the other thing also, about what you said also, Antonio, about it is kind of a company. And one really interesting part of this is, which I also was not so aware of before, that um, there is a way that a DAO entity, a legal entity, basically only takes care about, let's say, if there would be acting or active members, persons of such a treasury, um, that basically do some jobs for the treasury. And you don't need to, which is also pretty complicated, offer like a liability shield or a DAO that would kind of include all token holders or include the whole IOTA community. That's pretty good, because what people can do when they basically when they do a vote in the DAO or a decision based on their token holdings or something. Basically, they are kind of on-chain documents. So you would sign basically a message on the Tangle that is kind of a legal, that that removes that removes you from the risk of forming a general partnership by just voting in a governance decision. Um, and this is basically quite cool, because it removes a lot of complexity for the setup of such a treasury thing. Because in the end, we might only need to think about having a real legal entity, having a real setup thing for potential, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 people, or whoever has anything really to do with the DAO and do any representative work or any administrative work or something like this that could be seen as acting on behalf of the DAO. And that was really interesting to see from Bian. So um, yeah, it is a kind of a company, especially if you are a treasury, because basically what we have to figure out is what is the purpose of this treasury thing. Yeah, I think this is the first decision that we have to make clear pretty soon, because on this basic decision, what should the treasury do, and maybe also how should it be done, then we can decide really on the legal entity. And I think the good thing is, this is also why we did set up now these sessions with Bankless community, because there are so many different options outside there. And what Bankless will be doing now is that they really present 5 very different setups how communities approach this question. Yeah, so you can have a grant committee. You can do it all by every token holder votes on everything. You can have stuff like Cardano is doing it. And so basically what we will do over the next 2.5 weeks is we will present to the community how other communities are doing it, and they are doing it pretty successful. Yeah, so the projects that we have chosen to present are all, I think, in our opinion, and that's basically also the opinion of the Bankless guys, and they have much more experience than anyone of us. They are doing it pretty good. Yeah, they have large treasuries. They are big projects. It's not like small stuff like there are 200 people in a DAO or something. I mean, these are most of those projects are ahead of us in market cap and things like this, and they have bigger treasuries, and they are really leveraging the power of the community that is owning those tokens to really push projects, push the whole project forward with these grants. Yeah, and I think it's really good to have a look how others do it, and then come back together and reflect on what we have learned and really then make some concrete decisions what would be the best approach for starting our journey, because it's, I mean, it's still we're trying out, and if it doesn't work after a couple of months, we are always flexible and free to change things again, if we figure out that it doesn't work. Yeah.
Hey, this is Deep Sea. Just
Hey,
jumping in
JD.
here. Hey, just wanted to touch base on kind of your. We're asking for if anyone any comments on should a lawyer be funded to really look at the different options. And I'll have to say, with the nonprofit versus private, I would have thought, just in my layman experience, that a nonprofit can sort of make profits. They just can't give it to sort of investors or equities. Essentially, it just runs the nonprofit itself. It can pay salaries. However, given that Bjorn kind of mentioned, when it comes to crypto tokenomics and crypto tokens, like such as buying a stable coin and transferring your asset, I mean, that's a huge point that I think a lot of us might have missed, because we're looking at sort of a nonprofit in a traditional economic sense versus like a crypto environment. So I think that shows the importance of having basically a specialist that's done this, knows the current regulations, to really at least show the options and the pros and cons of each, like Marshall Islands versus British Virgin Islands versus Swiss. And at first, when we kind of started this a year and a half ago, I thought, oh, I mean, really, who's going to go after someone if they take part in voting in a DAO, having a governance token, let's say.
Yeah.
And I thought there's no way a country would ever go after, especially if it's kind of formed in another country or whatever. And now we're seeing left and right these DAOs just, I wouldn't
Yeah.
say under attack, but the government's certainly trying to find how can we hold people responsible if we need to go after. And the creators of the smart contracts and now the governance token holders, or eventually will probably be those who vote, really could potentially be liable for some of these tax implications if laws change. Even if you're doing it straight and narrow by the book, like, I definitely support having some insulation for the people that make the DAO, participate in the DAO, to not be liable for some of these things. So I think it just really hammers the point that it would be great to have a specialist. And what I always like to see, and it would be nice, is if, like, it's one thing to have multiple summaries and then you read through them, but sometimes a lot of us don't have time, the ones that that aren't working for the IF. So it's good if we have like a table that has, like, Marshall Islands, here's what they offer, pros and cons, left to right, rows, like, time to creation and liability from European and American countries, and whatever those, I don't even know what those would be. But, and then in your columns, you have Marshall Islands, British Virgin Islands, Swiss Foundation, and then it has, one row would be cost. So we can see the comparison, cost, time to development, kind of like protection of DAO participants with liability could be like weak, medium, or strong. So now we start balancing out, should we wait a year and a half if we wanted to do a Swiss Foundation? But this may be the strongest protection for DAO participants at a medium payment. It might not be 30,000 a year, it might be 10,000 a year, whatever that is, right? But having that comparison table would be great. And I think the same goes with learning about Bankless and seeing that same comparison table to be like, I don't know how it would be, but delegates. What DAOs have delegates? What has DAOs have everyone voting? And then how does that kind of affect it? Like takes longer to pass things, but it's more decentralized. What kind of methods do they put in place to kind of try to avoid whale manipulation and stuff like that? Seeing that table kind of with the columns of the comparison might be nice to just give like a quick summary for people that might miss some of these meetings and miss
Yeah.
hearing or whatnot. But I'm wholly for having a lawyer that's a specialist, be able to give the community a comparison of these different legal entities in different countries, the pros and cons, so that we can basically just make an informed decision. And that'll cost money, but I mean, there's a lot of money and just a lot of risk for the people involved on the table. So
Yeah.
it's, to me,
And
definitely worth spending some money to get a
yes.
specialist rather than doing it cheap. You get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, just to add to that, what JD was just saying, just like making a chart of the pros and cons of the different places where we could set up the DAO. Maybe we should also categorize like what is important for us in terms of like liability and taxes, and just make a list of the things that are most important for the DAO,
Mm.
and then kind of address which place is best for those. Like one place might be best for taxes, but another place might be better for liability or whatever.
Yeah.
And also another thing I wanted to ask you, Philo, was
Mhm.
today you're gonna do that presentation with Avenue, right?
Yes.
It, is it are where their DAO set up? Is that like public information? So like
Yeah.
so we could like get like a list of all the big grant DAOs out there and then
Yes.
see where they're set up and stuff?
Yeah. So basically, I asked the bankless teams to also really specifically research how are those DAOs that they present to us, how are they legally set up and structured? Because I mean, I know this is a very important question for all of us. So they will give us insights how Aave, how the Cardano, how bankless in themselves, because they're doing it currently, and Optimism. And what is the fifth one that we have? Gitcoin, how they basically approach also the legal question. I think they will hopefully give us some good insights. I think Aave is doing the thing, like I said, they basically have a committee. Um, they have a grant committee of, I don't know, I think 8 people with one lead, and all these 8 people are basically employed by a Swiss GmbH, kind of a Swiss blockchain native company. Um, and so they basically work for the community in this company, which is basically owned by a Swiss association that is owned by the community somehow, and get their whole liability protection from there. And what they get is like the community gives them a budget every couple of, I think every 3 or 6 months, they get a budget from the big Aave Treasury. Kind of then this basically the only thing that the community really votes is every couple of months. Okay, give them new money. They have spent it well. Seems all fine, and they also, of course, elect the people that sit in this committee. But this is what the bankless people hopefully will explain us a little bit closer and more, so that we see, okay, that really makes sense. And what you've said is also really good, JD. I think we need this comparison. There are several of those tables out there, let's say, in the open DAO world. I have a pretty good one, but maybe should I do the following? I can ask Bian to make such a, let's say, up-to-date and tailored comparison, like tailored on the needs that I mean, we have told him now also in the last meeting, basically what would be the need of the IOTA community, and he could maybe really make such uh, uh, an objective comparison, highlight the pros and cons, the costs, so that we really have something on hand, maybe 4 or 5 options that we have been talking already also, and maybe then we really have something that is tailored for what would be needed for the IOTA community Treasury thing. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he can make something for this, and so then we have this on hand. Yeah.
So Philo, once we
Mhm.
collect all this information and make these charts and stuff, and find out how these other grant DAOs are set up,
Yeah.
and we and like you and JD are saying, it's probably a good idea to get a blockchain specialist lawyer,
Mhm.
right? Do you Okay, so like, they make the recommendations, we have all these charts and data, but this is still kind of very legal, technical stuff to make a decision on. Do you see like this going up as a vote for the community, or do you think that this is something that should be left to decide on by the lawyer, or?
Basically, I think it would be great to get an agreement in the community on this, um, but probably really based on the on a professional recommendation from a lawyer. Yeah, really, I would say we engage with one of those lawyers, really pay them the proper amount that it takes to make to figure out a suitable solution, and then probably get this recommendation agreed on by the IOTA voters to really act on behalf of them and figure it out. We'll have to see how long this might take and how, because it's complicated. In the end, it's going to be a thing. People will not be able to research if what he is recommending is really the best thing, because to know this and to figure this out, you need deep legal knowledge in the topic, and nobody out there in the community, also not us, can really get this knowledge. So it's like always with a lawyer, you engage somebody to to act on your best interest, yeah, on his best knowledge and on the best knowledge of what is on the available information, to make the best recommendation um, that is possible, yeah. But still, somebody then needs to decide, yes, let's do it, yeah. Either this is the
No, I
community,
feel
yeah. Mm.
no. I was just thinking that um, it's such a tough. It's really tough. But like, I think if you take four lawyers, they'll probably come up with different things that they think would be best
Yeah.
for us. But I think what one or two lawyers can definitely do is say which legal umbrellas are the best for what the community wants. So let's say the community wants the best, most protective legal protection. Well,
Mhm.
this just for example's sake, this could be the Swiss Foundation, but takes a year and a half.
Mhm.
Versus the community says, man, we want to get going here. We want to kick it off. So let's find what can be formed quickest, which might be Marshall Islands. However, this then offers like a low or to medium protection for DAO participants. And then there might be like one where people say, well, really, we should just do the cheapest because we don't want to deplete the funds.
Yes.
So each of these areas has a pro and a con and a strength. And I think that was usually, in my experience, specialist lawyers are like, I can give you my recommendation based on what you're looking for. Like, what do you want for your community?
Yeah.
And like, what does each of these entities support, right? And if we can put those variables out to a poll, I mean, it could even be a Discord. I'd just be really interested in, is the Treasury community for IOTA and even Shimmer? I mean, if this stuff takes a year and a half, shit. See if we can do
Ah,
both at the same
it
time. Maybe
won't.
get a discount 2 for 1 sale or
the,
something. But
the good
but
thing,
anyways, just joking aside.
yeah.
But it would be very interesting for me. I would say legal protection for participants should be over, let's say, how long it takes. But it'd just be really interesting to see what the community what the feel is there.
Yeah.
Do they favor? And again, BN can answer that. Like, hey, these are generally the variables when I look at different legal frameworks. These are the 4 or 5. So maybe
Yes.
try to see what the community would like, and then we can go in there. And it would be difficult though, because it would be nice if the community supports it, but at the same time, if the community is like, let's just go cheapest, I would be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
oh
That's
boy.
that's
But I, I,
we'll
I,
have
I
to
have,
communicate this pretty good. Yeah. I think what Bian also made pretty clear last week, which was a bit surprising for me, that really the Swiss thing, because in the beginning, like this foundation thing is really something that's the only thing that is really complex and takes long. The Swiss association, basically the same thing that the EDF, that the IOTA Foundation is doing now in Switzerland, is pretty quick and pretty cheap. It's kind of 8 weeks and maybe 15K, and then you got it. And that was really something that I found really cool, because before I always thought, yeah, Switzerland, you know how the Swiss are. Everything takes ages. Every paper need to be double stamped in 7 different offices. But they seem to be really straightforward in this thing. And so a Swiss association, basically the same thing that the IOTA Foundation is setting up now for the EDF, would be basically cheaper than Cayman and stuff like this, and same the same time frame, 8 weeks. You can set it up, you can have it running basically, and it would be then really something. I mean, that's Switzerland. That's kind of the premier thing that you can have if you want a proper, serious financial setup institution thing. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
I
like,
mean, it'd be,
are there any drawbacks to the Switzerland
The Swiss
to doing it?
The only thing I really have to maybe rewatch the last thing. The thing is, the the association cannot offer a full legal wrapper for the people that would be employed in it. Yeah, so this is why often they do this Swiss association, and then they put a GmbH, like a Swiss company, under the umbrella. So then you really, the people that are really actively involved in this kind of are employees of the GmbH, which gives them the full legal protection, but still are under the association banner and belt and umbrella. That is basically everything is decided by the community through votes and things like this. But the people that actually taking the big risk, because they are acting actively acting on the treasury, making decisions, whatever,
So,
they
actually, so
need.
I
Yeah.
wanted,
Mhm.
yes, I wanted to ask you about that. If you're doing like a DAO, you're setting up a DAO at one of these places, and like you're saying, we do it in Switzerland, but then it's like an umbrella, and then we do a company underneath it for giving liability protection to the people who are going to be active in it, right?
Yeah.
So then, what happens if, let's say, we form some kind of committee of people who are going to be working full time, not full time, but working to process the applications and to give out grants,
Mhm.
but the community will be, let's say, nominating, and voting on the people who are going to sit on this committee, or
Yeah.
sub DAO or whatever. So if those people are gonna change, let's say like every 6 months, or let's say a year,
Mhm.
how would that work with the company? Do you just switch the titles, the names of the people?
I th- this is a good question. We have to figure out. I would assume basically that they I mean, they will get contracts with the company. Yeah, if you have like a grant committee elected for a year, basically they sign an employment contract with this company. Then they are fully employed people under Swiss law. Yeah, you have to pay social security and all those stuff. And then after a year, the contract runs out and it can be extended if the community wants to extend it, or otherwise you have to find a new job and go somewhere else if the community elects somebody else. Yeah.
So do you think there will be a situation where the company might need an owner or somebody like somebody who like the company is under like a president or a CEO, or you can set it up so that it's always revolving?
I think the owner of the company can be the association, basically. Yeah, that's the interesting part on it. But that's really maybe we should get a deeper clarification on this structure. I mean, the IF lawyers are also, because I mean we are setting it up in a moment, so basically we have some in-house knowledge on it. Yeah, but this is something we best get a clarification, maybe a document that really, like JD said, that really lists all the important points, bullet points, and then we can maybe formalize some questions and leverage them back towards Bian or to any other lawyer to get more clarification on that.
Jamie, IOTA Poet, already posted a spreadsheet that compared a lot of the different frameworks as far as cost, time, and some other things.
Yeah, that's what I said. There are a couple of these spreadsheets out there. Basically, I think we just need to have somebody making this really detailed and tailor-made for our specific case, so that we can be sure that we have like the best and up-to-date information and things like this.
So I thought of, would it be maybe good to start already collecting these questions if we want to extend them to IOTA's legal team or Bian? Maybe we could also like set up a document where everyone, like the one we have for the governance framework, where everyone can just add their questions. Then maybe we can group them and share them for feedback.
I think that would be a cool idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, Asa, you're happy to set up this, maybe based on the protocol of last week and maybe this one, that we put it out in the channel and people can really put some questions up there, and we then kind of forward it to whoever lawyer has the most experience in it or something.
Sure. We can also, I mean, whenever we have some input on the questions, that we could also see maybe like which questions are more suitable for IOTA's legal team to help us with, and which ones are more suitable to pass to Bian, for example. So I can start setting up the document and share it with the summary from today.
Yeah. I think we should really, I mean, it's nice to have the IF legal team, but first of all, I know they are super busy with all kind of stuff. And like, I don't know if the community would be happier to have a more neutral person looking into it. Just to mention it, I think that's up to the community to decide. And also we have to really first ask Anya if they would have any resources available to basically put work into this, or if it wouldn't be cleverer to really pay a lawyer specifically for this task that only kind of acts on command of the community, or let's say it like this.
Yeah, sure. That's a good point.
Yeah. I just don't want I don't want to put work on Anya's shoulder before kind of we have a go from her side. And basically, maybe it really would make more sense to have Bian do this, or I don't know. I'm just saying Bian because kind of I know he's kind of very likely the most experienced one that we can get. It's basically, I think he's one of the most experienced lawyers in crypto in whole Europe that you can find. So, yeah, that's my opinion.
I'd have to say I'm definitely in support of trying to get as much community people involved as possible. That'd be nice. And then we could always potentially take what we think and bounce it off an IF lawyer, just to have two different sides, would be good.
Yeah. Very, very cool. What else? Basically, I think in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, our friends from Bankless DAO will show up here. Should we, or do we have some questions about this whole thing again? Should we make some plans for next week? Does somebody do we have some tasks basically to move forward? So Asa can maybe start making the document. We can think about some real serious questions that we would need to have clarified from the legal side. We can look on some spreadsheets. I have a couple of links. I will look how up to date they are. Maybe we could we could ask Jamie. We could also ask Bian to maybe if they have a more up to date spreadsheet on this information and kind of collect it maybe all together also in this document that Asa is sharing. That we have like one single document where we put all the stuff together, put the information and the spreadsheet there, and then maybe collect questions based on the information of these spreadsheets and the information that we have, basically. Would that make sense?
Good to me.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so I think we can keep it with this now, because I'm sure we want to be on time for Bankless. Basically, does everybody of you know what Aave actually is? I don't know if they will introduce it, but does anybody know what Aave is doing? No. Okay. Basically, Aave is a borrowing and lending protocol. Yeah? Aave is, I mean, in our thing, it is something similar what Lendex is doing, or IOTA B. Yeah. So basically, Aave is a DeFi protocol running on Ethereum and Polygon and other chains, where you can deposit tokens that you own. Yeah. You can basically um, give Bitcoin to Aave, and either you get paid back interest, or you give them some of your tokens that you have, Bitcoin or Ethereum, and you can borrow other tokens for the tokens that you gave them. Yeah, and then if you want to trade or speculate that the other token that you are just borrowed will maybe rise in price, and then kind of you deposit some low volatile asset there like Bitcoin, and you borrow some crazy DeFi coin, and 4 weeks later you give it back to Aave and you take the profit. And basically what they are doing is like all typical DeFi stuff, but they are really big on it. I think they are basically behind Compound, the second biggest DeFi lending platform and stuff like this. And so they basically also grew a really, really big treasury especially over this last DeFi boom. They are very, very secure protocol as far as I've seen. There haven't been any hacks or anything. And so basically they're one of the most important DeFi projects out there in the crypto world, that basically all protocols and all chains need such a borrowing, lending platform, because it's kind of one of the foundational pillars of every DeFi application out there, so that you kind of easily borrow tokens, earn interest on them, lend your own tokens out, exchange them for other assets, and yeah. So basically, that's like pure DeFi. But quite big, big community, very solid project, and really what they are doing with their grants program is pretty cool. So I'm really looking forward to get some insights on this now from the Bankless people, which would show up pretty soon here, I think. I will shortly. Yeah.
Did they already go through the verification process?
Yes, they are both in our Discord.
Just making sure, yeah.
Yeah, I am just kind of texting them. Okay, I will stop this recording now and then kind of prepare the live stream.